This now is Jimmie Johnson. He's the driver of the number 48 Lowe's Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. And Jimmie, certainly this is a track that you've had much success at. I believe it's 10 wins in the Sprint Cup Series, and that's kind of hallowed ground when you start getting double-digit victories at a particular racetrack. Talk about your success here. Talk about the new lower downforce package here, and maybe kind of tie those two together if you think you could, and then your outlook for Sunday's race on the from the perspective of the 48 team.
Yeah, I mean, having been very fortunate to have success at the Cup level, and then to have this incredible success here at Dover is something that I'm very proud of and enjoy, and just the experience in the car to have my favorite track to drive turn out to be one of my most successful racetracks at this point in my career. It's just cool to see that all converge and come together. The experience around the track is so intense and so fun. I guess it's the only track that we compete on that really reminds me of my motocross or off-road roots, with the transitions into the corners and off the corners. I came here in an ASA car in maybe 97, 98, something like that, and just fell in love with the track then, and was very fast and competitive then, and it stuck with me through the Busch Series and then into the Cup Series here. So practice was really short, obviously, today with the issues the SHR cars had, or I guess the 10 car, and collected the other two. And then with some rain and stuff, we only made 3 runs. So things didn't go as we had hoped in qualifying trim. Just those 3 quick runs we made, we were looking for some more balance and comfort in the car. So we'll see how things progress through the afternoon if we get on track to qualify. But as most know, or everybody knows, the forecast looks good moving forward into tomorrow, and once we get into race trim here and get into the rhythm, we'll get a better understanding of the aero balance, the tire combination that goes with that, and ideally, hopefully, the smaller spoiler will allow the cars to get closer to one another. This track is the fastest way around, really, is chasing the bottom, and if we can run closer to one another and get closer to the car in front of you, hopefully we can set up some more passing.
Questions now for Jimmie Johnson. We'll take 2 here on the front. Right here, we'll start with this gentleman right here. Right here on the front row, Tina. No, right here. Right here. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Matt Pensick, WBOC in Salisbury. Jimmie, you've had a lot of success at this track. When it comes to Dover week leading into the week, is there's a little bit extra juice for you and the team, knowing that this is a track that you've had a lot of success in?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely get fired up knowing that this one's, the weekend, as we prep for it, the week of, when we get here, and then in moments like what we just had in practice where we didn't have the speed we wanted, it adds actually more frustration than it would at a normal track, because we're like, man, this is our place. This is where we run well. Why are we off? So it has many pros, but there are some cons that exist with a track that you've been so good at.
Hey, Jimmie, Pat Princeby with WGAL-TV. As you mentioned before, this is a track where stuff happens sometimes here. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the balance between the fun of driving here and the stress of driving here because of stuff like that?
Yeah, there is a balance of it for sure. I mean, you put in such an effort to make a lap. You continue to challenge yourself in what you're comfortable with. And then on concrete, once the tire slips, you usually don't have a very good chance to catch it. So you feel the car getting closer to the edge. You kind of dance on that line of traction, and then if something goes wrong, you hope you have enough room to save it. We know these straightaways are kind of self-cleaning as well, so there's a big penalty for the reward we're chasing here if you get it wrong.
Go ahead, Lee. Back in the back.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. Just curious, do you all use the same gears that Storthaus Racing uses?
I don't know that answer, but we didn't have any issues today, so I don't know, to be honest with you, though.
And in the past, it seems that if there was a area of wall without a safer barrier, your buddy Jeff Gordon would find it. Despite all the improvements that they made, even here at the track with adding more safer barrier, are you surprised that there are still places where, guys can have the kind of incidents they did this morning?
Yeah, I knew there were some improvements made. I just assumed that every wall had a safer barrier attached to it, but it sounds like that might not be the case. I didn't pay attention watching the highlights where the cars hit and if there were safer barriers or not. These straightaways are so narrow that the impact angle is very forgiving, and I think that I'm less concerned here with the inside wall than I would be at some other tracks where you have hundreds of yards of distance for the car to change directions and really have a square shot at a wall.
Yep. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Pocker, CSPN. Kind of following up on that, they added safer barrier to the inside of turn 3 here. The wreck today happened on the front stretch where the guys hit that, spun in the oil and hit the outside wall. Do you feel like if they added safer barrier to that outside wall here, would it significantly impact the racing groove? And should that be a concern?
I heard everything but the first part. You said something about turn 3 as well, Bob?
You repeat that, Bob.
They added the safer barrier to the inside of turn 3.
Okay.
But the one area that's not covered is the front stretch outside wall. And I think the theory is that you guys run up so close against it that would considerably impact the racing line. We've heard that at other places, and they've still changed it. But could there be something about it here where it really would impact?
Yeah, I mean, we'd certainly adjust, though. You know, the outside wall here doesn't bother me too much, that it doesn't have the safer barrier on it. It's not like a mile and a half where we have the D-shaped front straightaway, and you actually get away from the wall, and if something went wrong, again, have a terrible angle at the wall. But with all that said, I mean, man, I'd take a soft wall over a hard wall any day in any situation. So I guess now seeing the video play up on the screen right there, I didn't notice, but I did hear there were some improvements made. But I'm not overly concerned here. I guess I understand why there isn't on the front stretch here.
Go ahead all the way in the back. Mike.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. Jimmy, the rules and the landscape for the All-Star race next week seem to be ever-changing. What do you anticipate how the nature of that race is going to change with these changes?
I think the nature of the race really depends on tire fall-off. And for the teams that are required to pit, based on where they finish, hopefully there's a ton of tire fall-off, and you know you can make up those positions lost in a very short final segment. I'd say that the conversation right now amongst the drivers is there's a race for 9th, 10th, 11th, whatever that transfer spot is, wherever it ends up being, that everybody's joking about that's the spot to be right now. But hopefully we get to the track and we see that the tire wear is far different, and people don't have to play that game.
Other questions for there's Holly Kane. We'll take Holly and then go back to Bob. Go ahead, Holly.
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. You have won so much here, and I even hate to ask this question, but how were you able to last year this wasn't the result here, and it obviously had a great effect on your chase hopes. How do you get past that and coming back here, do you still love the place even though it, kind of ended things for you last year?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was human error, something that we did wrong as a race team and cost ourselves a shot at the chase when we were in the fall race. But, you're going to have bad experiences at all tracks. People are going to make mistakes. Drivers are going to make mistakes, even at his favorite track. So it doesn't matter. My love for this track will never change. I fell in love with it my first lap in an ASA car back in the 90s, and it's still just as cool now as it ever has been.
Bob?
Yeah, I kind of have a similar question. When you came back in here today, do you think about the wins, or do you think about what this place kind of did to you lately, or how you felt about it lately?
All of our preparation was based on the spring race. The fall race, we knew we had a fast race car, but knowing we were showing up in qualifying trim, and last fall qualifying was rained out, my mental space was all spring and the qualifying effort we made here. So I guess in the back of my mind, I knew what happened in the fall, but it hasn't entered my mind until the question just started to surface.
Go back to Holly Kane. Go ahead.
this is a question not about racing. You are great on Twitter, and you have lots of followers, and people really enjoy. How important is that to you to be able to have that kind of communication one-on-one with your fans? I'm doing a piece on Twitter and the drivers, and just kind of how do you see your role on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think over the years I've had a chance to get to know most everyone in the room. Through my exchanges on television interviews, I haven't had that chance with fans. So social media has been that opportunity for me. I think I was labeled and accused of being many things that I wasn't due to my focus and my job. And then I think that the world of social media has opened me up and has shown the far more relaxed side that exists. And then in today's world and where everything's going, every sponsor is so focused on the social space and interaction, reach and followers and all the stuff that goes on. So it's a big part of society today, and it's been a big help for me. I can't tell you how many times I've seen fans say, I've always hated the 48, but now I like you. And that's very common, especially after a drink or two on the flight home and having a little fun with people.
Other questions for Jimmie Johnson right here? Let's go back to the front row.
Hey, Jimmy, with the recent incident with the Gibbs team, one driver nudging the other out of the way for a victory, has that conversation ever come up with Hendricks, and what would you do in a similar situation? Yeah, I mean, I can recall an event in Martinsville with Gordon aggressively trying to move me out of the way. I mean, our deal's always been don't crash the teammate. So if we take it under that context, the Gibbs guys, stayed in line with that and went on. I'm sure, the guy on the losing end always thinks that it's unfair, and the guy on the winning end thinks that it's just great short track racing. It's a tough environment, and we know with multi-car teams that at some point you're going to have to race a teammate for a win, and you just kind of file that away and know how you can race your teammate or others, for that matter, when you get down to the end of a short track race.
Let's finish up right here with Jerry Jordan. Go ahead.
Jerry Jordan, Performance Racing Network, and Kicking the Tires. Since you brought it up, labels and things like that, when you were on top of the world and winning 6 championships, a lot of labels came out for you. Now Kyle comes back and people are labeling him. Why do you think it is that fans are so fickle with drivers, and when they do so well, they get down on them?
Yeah, I know. It's weird. Man, you win a couple, and people are like, wow, I like him. You win a lot. He's cheating. There's no way. Hate him. Don't like him. And then I guess later in your career, it all comes back. I saw the tail end of Earnhardt go through some of that. I watched a lot of Jeff's arc through all of that as well. Kyle and I were in a truck together recently, and we were laughing about how many cheers I had and how little he had. So it's hard to understand really why, but I guess I've seen it enough to kind of get it.
Jimmie, thank you again for coming in here today. Good luck at Dover, and we'll talk to you soon.